So forgive me as I start over. Okay, we're adding and subtracting rationals. You have to have a common denominator to add or subtract. So on this one, they already had a common denominator, which was x. And because their denominator was common, we could rewrite it like this. And then 2 minus 5 is negative 3. So that one was simple. There's our answer. Okay, look at number 2. Do my denominators already match? Yes. Yeah, sorry. It's side to side. Okay, so they already match, but we still have to factor it. And the reason being is because if we want to simplify later, it's just easier to factor now before we start breaking things apart. So I'm going to come over here in the corner. What's my A? 1. B is also 1, and C is negative 6. A times C is negative 6. B is 1. What multiplies to give me negative 6 and adds to give me 1? Which one's going to be negative? Negative 2, positive 3. So my denominator is x minus 2, x plus 3. And they already match, so that's my LCD. Now, because they match, I don't have to change anything on the top. So I'm going to bring my denominator down over here. And then, y'all, I don't like to rewrite things a million times. Do you? No. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to simplify my numerator. Okay. Before I write it above my common denominator, because I don't want to rewrite it 12 million times with the common denominator. So I have 3 minus this whole thing. How do I simplify that? You can. I have to get rid of that, whatever's touching my parentheses, so I can get rid of the parentheses. Nothing inside my parentheses matches or combines, but I have to get rid of what's touching my parentheses. What's touching my parentheses? A negative, so I have to distribute that negative. Not the 3. The 3 is not touching my parentheses. So 3, that gives me minus x, and then a negative and a positive makes a negative also. Now do I have like terms? Yes, what are they? 3 and negative 6. What's 3 minus 6? Now, I have an x plus 3 right here. I have a negative in front, and if I take that negative in front out, is that going to become x plus 3? Let's double check. So if I take out that negative, it's also the same thing as taking out a negative 1. So divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. These both become positive, and I get x plus 3. So I have negative 1 parentheses x plus 3. Is it okay if you just wrote negative parentheses x plus 3? Yes. Can I simplify that? Yes. What combines? Or not combines, sorry. Cancels, divides. The x plus 3's. Now, if you would have just had a negative, you would have been like, okay, negative over x minus 2. Well, can you have an empty top? What can you put there that doesn't change anything? A 1. So this is why I like to simplify my numerator separately. Did you really want to write a denominator under all of those steps? No, I don't either. So I always separate, and I'll simplify one and simplify the other, and then put them together when they're both simplified. Making up my own words over here. Any questions with that? Okay, so let's look at number 3. Do they already have a common denominator? No. Okay, so what can 5 and 4 both turn into? 20. Now, if you cannot look at those and tell what they both turn into or what your common denominator is, I always start with my smaller number, which is 4. And what are factors of 4? Or multiples of 4, sorry. 4, what comes after 4? 8, 16, 20. Well, doesn't 5 go into 20? Therefore, that's my LCD. Now, I had somebody last period that told me, what about 40? Well, yeah, 40, but that's not my least common denominator. So if you do something that's common but not your least common denominator, you will have to take out a GCF at the end and simplify, no matter what. Okay, so just be careful with that. I would always try to do your least common denominator. It will make it easier at the end. Okay, so we need to make our denominators be 20. How do I turn a 5 into a 20? Times 4. What I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator because that's what keeps it equal. So what's 4 times x? And 4 times 2? Over 20. How do I turn a 5 into 20? I mean a 4 into 20. Dang it. Times 5. Now, one thing I want you to realize is what sign is in the middle? A minus. So I'm going to bring that minus up here because this is like saying 4 times x plus 2 minus 5 times x minus 2, right? Here's my thing, though. If you didn't bring it up, that'd be okay. But you would have to distribute the 5 and then come back later and distribute the negative. Do you want to distribute them separately? No. So always pay attention to what's in the middle. Let's distribute the negative and the 5 together. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10 over 20. And since we distributed that negative, we could put a plus in the middle now. Okay, so I want y'all to combine your like terms. What are my like terms? What are my like terms on top? Yes, but what are my like terms? 4x minus 5x. You're not wrong. Don't erase it. I was just trying to do it one step at a time. So what's 4x minus 5x? Negative x. And then 8 plus 10. And the reason I can finally combine them is because they both have a denominator of 20. Yes? Okay. So knowing that, I could take my negative out, but will anything simplify? So do I have to take out the negative? No. Would it hurt anything if I did? No. So you could write your answer like this. However, if you took your negative out, you would have gotten this. And that's also okay. So either of these would be okay. Because taking the negative out, I still can't simplify, so it doesn't matter. So it's either way would be fine. Okay, let's look at number 4. Okay, so looking at the denominators, do they already match? No, what do they already have in common, though? A, so I know that that's going to be part of my LCD. Okay, looking at just the numbers 5 and 3, what can 5 and 3 both become? 15. Now, what does this one have that this one does not have? C. Now, I want you to realize this is 3 separate factors. 5 times A times C, 3 times A. I know there's no plus or minus, so the factors are smaller, but they are still their own factors. So what would I multiply this by to become 15AC? Just times 3. What I do to the denominator, I also do to the numerator. And I get 6x over 15ac. Now the nice thing is I have a plus sign here, so I don't have to worry about negatives. Now how do I turn a 3 into a 15? Times 5, and then what is it missing? The c. And what's 4y times 5c? Yes, almost. So 20cy is proper. If you put yc, I won't take off, but remember you should type it. You should write it alphabetically. And then I have 15ac in the denominator. Now that my denominators match, how would I properly write the top? Because they're not like terms, so I can't combine them. What should go first? The 20. Why the 20cy first? Yes, it has more than one variable, therefore the degree is 2. Because they both have a degree of 1. 1 and 1 is 2. This only has a degree of 1. So it's 20cy plus 6x. Now, last question. Nothing alike is in the top, so we can't combine it. They don't all have a letter I can take out. But doesn't the top have a GCF? What is the GCF? 2. So I want you to realize if you took out the 2, you would get 10cy plus 3x. Now, does 2 over 15 simplify? No. So did you have to take out the 2 on this one? No. So I would take either of these answers because it did not simplify. But if it did simplify and you didn't take it out, then you would get points off. So like if you could have taken out a 3, 3 over 15 can simplify. So you should always take out a 3 if possible. Okay, let's look at number 5. Okay, so what's wrong right now? What's wrong with one of the denominators? The order. And when I fix the order, what does it look like? Negative 2x plus 1. Are we not? No. Because the negative 2x, that was a negative 2x and a positive 1. So when we flip it, that has to stay negative and that has to stay positive. But we have to take out the negative. And when I take it out, those both become opposite. So this becomes positive 2x minus 1. So there's my denominator. So what do the two denominators have in common? The 2x minus 1. Now what does the first one have that the second one does not? A negative. So I need to give this one a negative. And if I give the denominator a negative, I also have to give the numerator a negative. So now that I have a common denominator of negative parentheses 2x minus 1, I have 6 minus negative 4. I don't know what happened to my pen there. Okay, so will two negatives make a positive, right? So this ends up being plus 4. So I get 10 over negative 2x minus 1. And that does not simplify. Any questions with that one? Okay, now we're going to get into the kind of gross ones. They're not super terrible. But if you look at example 6, do my denominators match? No. So I need to factor both of the bottoms because I need to figure out if they have any factors in common, and what they don't have in common I need to give to the other side. So I'm going to factor both of my denominators. So a times c on top, 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. b is negative 2. What multiplies to give you negative 3 and adds to give you negative 2?
Negative 3.
Yes, so positive 1, negative 3. So this denominator becomes x plus 1, x minus 3. Okay, here I have 1 times negative 2. And the reason I don't have to do the box is because a is 1, so all we had to do is this. Now 2 is prime, so it's 1 and 2. Which one of those is going to be negative? The 2. So this gives me x plus 1, x minus 2. Everybody okay with what I've done so far? So here's my question. What factor do the two denominators have in common? X plus 1. So we know that's going to be part of our LCD. But what does this one have that this one does not have? So like this one they both have. But this one has an x minus 3 that this one does not have. Therefore, I have to give this one an x minus 3 so they can match. So now they both have an x minus 3. I'm underlining them so we see what matches and what doesn't. Okay, now this one has an x minus 2 that this one does not have. So I have to give this one the x minus 2. And now all three of their factors match. And that's my GCF. I mean GCF, LCD. One of those acronyms. Okay, so knowing that, we need to simplify the top. So remember, I'm going to bring down my denominator. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to simplify my numerator. Because I don't want to rewrite it a billion times until I have it all the way simplified. Okay? How do I simplify that numerator? What are we going to have to do? Distribute? Yeah. So we have x times 7x, which is 7x squared. X times negative 1, which is negative 1x. Negative 2 times 7x, which is negative 14x. And negative 2 times negative 1, which is positive 2. Okay. So now I have to distribute this side. Now I want you to realize this is a negative, so I'm going to bring it up so I don't have to distribute them separately. So this is negative 6x times x, which is negative 6x squared, and negative 6x times negative 3, which gives me positive 18x. I haven't simplified any of it yet, because I'm just going to wait till the end and do it all together, like this piece. I was going to multiply everything before I start combining like terms. Everybody okay with what I've done so far? So I have a 7x squared minus 6x squared. What does that give me? Just x squared or 1x squared. Then I have a negative 1x minus 14x plus 18x. So you can literally come to your calculator and you could do negative 1 minus 14 plus 18. I can't type the x because the calculator will give you some random number. Okay, and so that's positive 3x. And then I have a plus 2 with no like term, so this is plus 2. Now, here's my question. If my goal is to simplify, do I want to factor this? I mean, you might not want to. Should you factor it? if your goal is to simplify, if possible. Yes. So let's see if it's possible. A times C is 2, B is 3. Well, 2 is prime, so this is 1 times 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Is 1 plus 2 3? Yeah, so this is factorable, and I get x plus 1, x plus 2. So does it simplify? Yes. What cancels? The x plus 1s. Now, what about the x plus 2? It stays because this is x minus 2. They do not match all the way. So you can't do that. So this becomes x plus 2 over x minus 2, x minus 3. So I know that was a lot, but that's your answer. The next one's not as bad, I promise. Okay, last one. Everybody good on that one? Okay. Look at number 7. So again, we have to factor them. I'm going to factor them over here. And I'll do it for you. Okay, so we have, this one becomes x plus 2x minus 1. And this one becomes x plus 2x plus 4. Everybody okay with what I've done so far? So what matches already? X plus 2. So that's what matches. So this has an x minus 1, therefore this needs an x minus 1. So now that matches. And now this has an x plus 4, so this one needs an x plus 4. Okay, so again, I'm going to bring my common denominator down. And I'm going to simplify. I'm just going to write top because I don't have room for the numerator. So x, everybody okay? Okay. X times x is x squared. X times negative 7 is negative 7x. Four times x is positive 4x. 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. Now the nice thing is this is positive, so I don't have to worry about distributing a negative. 3 times x is positive 3x. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Squeezing that in there. So remember, that's your other problem. Ah. There's a 3 there. So what? I have an x squared. Does it have a like term? No. Then I have a negative 7 plus 4 plus 3x. So if I do that in my calculator, what? Yeah, it's 0. Negative 7 plus 4 plus 3 gives you 0. So the x's all cancel. So I'm going to cross them out. And then I have 28 minus 3. So 28 minus 3 is negative 31. Now, this looks like a perfect square minus a perfect square. X squared is a perfect square. It has subtraction, but is 31 a perfect square? No, do not try to make it a perfect square. I've seen that so many times. Don't do that. If it's not a perfect square, it's not a perfect square, and we don't have to do anything. Make your life easier. Yes? Not harder. So there's your answer. You can't simplify it, so that's your answer. Okay, one more thing I want to explain on your practice. If you look at number 1 through 4, we're only going to focus on the front of the practice today with a little bit of time we have left. But if you look at 1 through 4, it's asking you domain. When we're talking about domain, are we looking at the numerator or the denominator? Denominator. Okay, so it's multiple choice. Is it all real numbers but with limitations, or is it all real numbers without limitations? Okay, without limitations is when you have no, pretty much 90% of the time it's going to be when there's no letters. Every once in a while you have that squared that makes it to where it can't cancel, but for the most part that's when there's no letters in the denominator. Okay, so if you look at like this one, okay, let's do number 2 together. You have a letter in the denominator and it's not squared, so you will have a limitation. So it's going to be a, and we have to figure out what x cannot equal. Well, 4x plus 9 equals 0. Remember, you can set it equal to 0. When there's a number in front of your x, it just makes it easier. How do you get rid of plus 9? And now what? Divide by 4. So that is what x cannot equal. Negative 9 over 4. There's your answer. Does that make sense for number 1 through 4? Okay, look at number 5 and 6. Do you have to combine those, or is it just asking for your least common denominator? It's just asking you to find your least common denominator. Don't make those hard. Yes? And remember, to find your least common denominator, can you add or subtract, or do you have to multiply? What did we do on all of ours? We multiplied. Do not add and subtract. You have to multiply. Have to multiply. To create your least common denominator. Okay, and then you'll notice that 7 through 10 are all the denominators already common? Yes. Okay, so I just want you focusing on the front today. You only have about 9 minutes, but that's what you're working on.